She just come back every year, you know. She was so incredible. Her words moved us immensely. Please welcome Dr. Aisha Armayao. And of course, my lovely queen, who is, many of you would have seen those posters. She has helped us all to keep track of the number of days the Chibok girls have been in captivity. Join me in welcoming activist, feminist, everything great East, Buki Shonibare. And you'll remember last year also when we were talking about Boko Haram and the Chibok girls, and we managed to have with us somebody who was quite close to the experience, the uncle of one of the Chibok girls. It's always nice when we can hear from the horse's mouth, as they say. And I think this is such a privilege to be able to have this gentleman who's written kind of memoirs about his experience having been a victim of kidnapping. So for those of us who don't quite, understand how it works, we're very fortunate to have here today somebody who can answer a lot of our questions and hopefully tell us what we need to be doing more to get rid of this hideous trend. Please join me in welcoming author Folarin Banigbe. Could you test your mics, please?
Hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for smiling.
Hello. Hello.
So, in 2018 alone, up to 1,814 people died from either banditry or kidnapping. The data was not separated, so these are the numbers for 2018 alone. And this has been on for quite a while before it even escalated, and it's all over the news. With me are people who have, Ms. Lola has already talked about them and their experience. But I would just love to go over their qualifications again. I would start from my right. Dr. Armia is a graduate of Bayero University, Kano, and she has an MBBS degree from the Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria. She also works at the Tertiary Healthcare Facility in Nigeria and holds a position as a consultant for psychiatrist. Mrs. Buki Shonibare is the founder of Girl Child Africa, the CEO of She TV, coordinator Adopt a Camp, and the co-convener of the Church 2 movement. She has received a lot of awards, recognitions from the U.S. Embassy, from the World Economic Forum, and she's also a Mandela Washington Fellow. Please put your hands together for her. That Mr. Folarin is a civil engineer, a publisher, and he's the writer of the Abduction Chronicles. And today he's going to be talking to us about his abduction experience. So I would actually start with you, sir. Can you walk us through that experience, being abducted? What was it like for you? What happened to you before and after that?
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've been severally asked this question days after I was released, and ultimately that's the reason why I wrote the book, so that I don't have to answer answer this question. So if you want to hear the short version, I was sitting in my study one night in 2016, and some armed bandits came into my compound, broke down my wall, proceeded to rob us really violently, and then at the end of it took me away. I spent 5 days and 4 nights in some jungle in the Niger Delta of Nigeria, and I had to negotiate my freedom, and I came out. Short version. The long version is in the book.
Okay.
You would have to buy to read. But I mean, I would be able to give some insights into what happened and maybe some ideas as to what I discovered and how I have managed to take the lessons learned and then work with it. So that's the short version, I guess.
All right.
Do you want to know more?
Yeah, we want to know more. Like, okay, I was talking to a security specialist once, and he was talking about how humanity, there's a part of the humanity of your abductors that you can sort of appeal to. What kind of conversations did you have with them that kept you or kept them from killing you? I mean, they kill people or doing anything to you. Were you talking to them?
Yeah, I mean, so you would, okay, so let's go back to when they came to the house. So when they came to the house, they had broken into the compound, and I heard a sound when they were trying to break apart the burglary proof. So when I went downstairs to the kitchen, I saw them, and of course, the initial reaction is, what do they do there? You know, and then when they heard my voice, they sort of ducked. But I think it was a waiting game. They were trying to see what I had, if I had any weapon and all of that. But I didn't have anything. So they made an attempt again to continue their work. And I shouted again. So eventually they realized that I didn't have anything. So they sort of just shot their way through. And we were having this discussion about, when I saw that they shot, I said, bros, you never reach like that now. Come make I open the door for you. Because then I was defenseless. I was the only guy in a house full of women. So my immediate concern was get this over and done with minimal harm to anybody. So we had that conversation, and then they barged in asking for money, asking for gold. Of course, you had to engage them. So I kind of was engaging them, but I was engaging them in their native language, which was Pidgin English. I mean, so people ask me how I survived. You survived by native intelligence. So, I mean, somebody who is, bawling at you in worry Pidgin, you can't be speaking Queen's English. Yeah. So you need to have that native intelligence. You need to be able to react to situations. So they were asking, money no dey this house. So I was basically shouting back, I don't get money. So eventually, fast forward, they took me in the car, in one of my cars. They drove me out. So all this time, I was cooperative. Again, so we get into this place where people say, why didn't you fight back? So again, you have to sort of weigh your chances. You have to think about the collateral damage. Yeah. And then you have to make a split-second decision. It's always split-second decisions about what do I do? What is the consequence of what I want to do? And I decided sort of go and grab the cutter they were using. But I felt, well, I couldn't even get the cutter inside my part of the house. So I left that. And severally over the course of the days that I was there, I would entertain thoughts of running away. And I look at the array of AK-47s lined up against me. And I'll say, look, this is a foolish idea. So you have to engage. Yeah. Again, there is no manual, and that's the thing. People say, oh, how can I prevent being kidnapped? Sorry, yeah. You cannot. How can I, what do I do when I'm picked up? Depends on who picks you up. Should I fight or should I, be calm? Again, you have to sort of look around you and say, what's the best way to deal with this? So I had to sort of change tactics, but the important thing was, first, you can't be talking to them if they're not talking to you. Yeah. You are just looking for beating, So you need to sort of gauge. So many things that what I tried to do was just to chronicle the event, so you can actually take what you want from it. So I engaged a lot. I seized opportunities to counter. So some of the narratives were, oh, rich people know they help the poor. So I kind of thought, okay, well, I'm not a rich person, and so I engaged. Well, would not be our choice. And I saw that as an opportunity to sort of appeal to their softer side. So I was saying, look, people who they spoil this country, they're not they here, not be me. And why you not go just come my house, come pick me up? I'll be hustler just like you. Again, trying to make you less of an enemy, but more of somebody who is like them. It worked in a way because, I got some information from the boys that helped me to deal with the master when he came. So essentially, you need to engage. You need to watch your engagement. Even when you pray, people say, pray. You need to watch when you pray because you cannot be praying that something would happen to your captor when he's hearing you. So, for example, I would pray under my breath when it's quiet. Then when it's raining, I would be able to put my emotions in it. Because then if they heard you say, destroy them, this sort of prayers that people pray, then you are getting yourself in trouble. Yeah. So basically, engagement was necessary.
Wow. So I picked language and communication there. All right, so you mentioned a range of things, and I picked... Okay, so let me just throw a question to the panel, and then I'll start from Dr. Amina. What do you think is the root cause of this kidnappings and banditry as well? There are a lot of issues, there are a lot of factors, and I think kidnapping itself and the banditry is the symptom of the problem. So what are the root causes of these activities?
Good morning, everybody. I'm a psychiatrist. Yes, I have studied a lot about the human mind. What I can think about the kidnap issue in Nigeria lately is about the concept of vulnerability and resilience. Okay? Vulnerability is the degree to which a system or part of a system. So the higher the resilience of the society, the less the damage. We had a system which initially was just there. Everybody was doing what he or she wanted to do at a certain point in time. Now the system changed, where we wanted to change the system to, rather than individual, to be a real system where we have laws and systems are working, even after you.
Yeah.
Because one of our major problems in Nigeria is individuality. We don't have systems, we have individuals. What they say stands. Yeah. Now we want a system where even after me and you, the system works. Of course, the society is used to a particular system. So with a change, there will be a lot of adversities. Yeah. Unfortunately, the populace aren't ready for that now. Money now. And with the technology going on, a lot of people are online, social medias, and what you see on the social media is usually fake lives. Usually, they are fake lives. Social media is very important. It's very, very powerful in knowledge. But again, it has its own adverse effects.
Okay.
So what people are seeing, especially the younger generation, what they are seeing, it's not real.
So are you saying these things they see trigger them?
A lot of the kidnappers they are bringing out lately are youths. They are young people.
Yeah.
The ones we see, they are young people. So it is about money. Now it's not about killing. If you notice lately, it's not about killing. It's about taking in and collecting money. They start from millions and end up maybe with 1 million or $500,000 naira at the end. So it's about money. So the system is going through a lot of vulnerable individuals. Okay. As part of that system. So there are a lot of issues, and our resilience level is very low. And with the issue of kidnap is a sudden thing. It's sudden, it's unpredictable, and it leads to a lasting effect on the psyche of not only the victim, but the family and the society is affected adversely.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Ms. Buki, she mentioned money as a driving, as the goal of these kidnappers. Do you think poverty is the reason they actually go into these things? Is it poverty? Is it power?
Okay, so first, now that I have the mic, thank you so much, Ms. Lola, for this opportunity again. I don't take this platform for granted. I think if we want to look at causes, I very much agree with what you have said in terms of the extent to which we are resilient as a people. And in that peopleness, we are talking about especially individuals. But I would want to look at it more in three different bands. First, the band of the social costs. And then by social costs, we are looking at how inequalities, and you know, when they were talking to Mr. Folani, they were telling him, you know, it is people like you know, and he was saying that I'm not one of the problems, I'm not. So there is that social inequality that keeps going on. And so long as we keep having such kind of problems, the problem around illiteracy, the problem around ethnic and religious divides, all of those divides that defines who we are socially, we will keep having that different classes of people. And by different classes, we are talking about the rich and the poor. So sometime will come, and that time has come now, where the poor will begin to eat the rich. And that's one of the things that we're looking at. The second factor, the first factor I've talked about is social. The second factor is that of economic, the economic factor. And that ties into the context that you gave when you were asking this question. And by economic, I'm looking at what's the poverty level. So when you go to Warri, for instance, and a lot of the places where this kidnapping for ransom happen, you know, kidnapping can be in different forms. Yeah. People kidnap for different reasons, either to perpetrate fear, or to get you to do something, or to get you not to do something, or to negotiate their way. But one major type of kidnapping is the kidnapping for ransom. And sadly, Nigeria ranks one of the topmost countries, you know, in comparison to Venezuela, Yemen, Somalia, and all of those other countries. So you look at the social factors where poverty, unemployment, you know, keeps going on. And so long as we keep having those divides, these people who are affected, we keep finding one way or the other to close that gap. The third and the final one would be the political factor. And I would streamline the political factor. We can have that conversation. I'll streamline it down to how politicians, some politicians, I won't generalize, develop a gang of banditry just to serve some particular political purpose. And we've heard how some of this is even one of the reasons why we have Boko Haram today. Yeah. Why we have, you know, a group of young people who are jobless, or who feel marginalized, legitimately so sometimes, and then you arm them up, and they become thugs for you, and then these guys become, you know, bandits. And so when you look at that interplay between the social, the economic, and the political, we can begin to drill a bit deeper into why we have bandit groups like the militant in the south, yeah. The insurgents in the northeast, and several other bandit groups that we are dealing with now that they don't even have a name.
Yeah, that are up and coming.
Sorry, Farida, since you asked the question, I might as well just add my voice. So, I hear my colleagues, but I thought we were talking about the root cause.
Yes.
So for me, when I sat in that camp for 5 days, after the time I was thinking, okay, so what's really the issue? We can argue poverty, we can argue political divides and everything. But I ask myself, why is it that some people are, when faced with this adverse situation, make a choice to go this way or that way? So for me, if we try to dig deeper, my own submission about this is we have these issues, not just banditry, not just kidnapping, not just corruption, but whatever it is that we've called vice today. We have the issue because three things are missing. One, we've lost the value systems. Two, we've lost a sense of communal living. And three, we lost a sense of humanity. We can argue back and forth why we lost it, but for me, those are the three things that is missing. Okay. Because when you bring these three things back into the equation, you will find that people become less able to harm themselves or harm another person if they see the person as somebody of the same commune or somebody that have the same, that is human.
Yeah.
We can argue that politicians develop a gang of bandits rather, but I ask myself, where are certain people vulnerable to becoming, to go into that side?
Okay.
Where are people able to go to Boko Haram camps? It's value. Values may be driven by all kinds of things, but it is value. What is your own value system?
Could you give me a minute just to make this point? So you know this thing that we call problem tree analysis, where you draw a tree and then there's the root cause, and then there's the trunk, you know, and then you now have the leaves, where the root cause is the root of that particular tree.
Issue, yeah.
And then you then have proximate causes,
Yeah.
which is often very close to the root cause. So I totally agree with, you know, value systems, lack of humanity and all of that. When we do a kidnapping problem tree analysis, we can begin to situate some of these things either as root causes, as proximate causes, or as now the manifestations that we are seeing in form of banditry and all that. But the question for us as a people is that where do we situate problems of our lack of social direction, the economic factors, which often are big, airy, audacious problems that when we don't deal with them, they begin to manifest it. If you give me food, I will not think of whether I'm losing my value system, because there is a fundamental provision that has been made to take care of my basic needs.
Yeah.
Don't forget the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If that bottom is not taken care of, it manifests in different ways.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so you can clap. Having mentioned all of these causes, Dr. Amina, what do you think are the sanctions or deterrence mechanisms we can use to prevent them from happening, or on the scale that they are happening right now?
Prevent kidnapping from happening?
Yeah, to like a deterrence. We may not be able to prevent it completely, but it's almost an epidemic now. So how can we reduce it?
The system.
Okay.
The system should be changed. The system should work for it. Because you as an individual can't do nothing. Okay? You can't do nothing. We have a system. We have a system of governance. Okay? And until and unless the perpetrators of the kidnap are found and booked, it will continue. The cycle will continue. Okay? We can sit here and talk from now till tomorrow. In fact, from now till next year. I always tell people, when you have problems and you do not have the solution, or you have the solution, you have the recommendation, and the policies are not done, then you will keep on talking about the same thing for till the end of the century. Okay? We have a lot of, we have different individuals with different fields, different knowledge, all on kidnap. And everybody has spoken on it, and we have talked about it, and we have brought recommendations, policy papers, documents, they are there. But they are papers. So unless they are implemented, we would go through this over and over again, because more are going to come out. Yes, we have bandits in Northwest now. Yes. We didn't have them. Yeah. My state, Kaduna, was one of the most peaceful states in Nigeria. Now we are becoming something else. And now the resilience of the people in the state currently is becoming a vulnerability again for the government. Because what they did now was, last 2 weeks, they burnt the house of the local government chairman. After the bandits had killed some of the people retaliated. And that is their own resilience now. Do you understand? Yeah. To prevent the damage of killing people, since they are not doing anything, they are now attacking them. Or they take cops to the emir's palace, or to the government, or to the governor's house. You know, so those are the things, because they are clear. They have caught some of them. What have they done to them? There is information. I'm not a security person. I work with the security because I'm a forensic psychiatrist. Yeah. And I work with high-profile criminals. So there are security reports. What are they doing with it? You and me do not know. Maybe I know. But I can't talk about it. So unless and until the government works on that, believe me, these bandits are going to multiply. Since it's an easy way of getting money. They kidnap, you pay ransom. If you don't pay ransom, at the end of maybe 5-6 months, Because in Katsina, there was somebody I knew, they kidnapped his son, he didn't pay the ransom for 6 months, and they released the boy at the end. But how many people can do that?
Yeah.
Do you understand? So that is the problem. That is the problem.
So do you think militarized action, or actually when these perpetrators are caught, let's say these systems begin to work, is military action the right way to go, or should they be put into psychiatric homes? Or I don't know which one.
Excuse me, I'll cut you in this. Do not stigmatize my patients.
Okay.
A bandit, a kidnapper, a criminal is not a psychiatric patient.
Oh, okay.
All right? He's a human being like you and me.
Okay.
So let's put that aside.
Okay.
Yes, we can have psychiatric patients that have their issues. But kidnappers, bandits,
are criminals.
Boko Haram are not, they are criminals. They are not psychiatric patients. All right? So now, Zamfara State Governor, what did he do? He called some of the bandits, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a video.
Some of us were screaming and shouting.
Yeah.
When the guns don't work, what do? You get them, sit with them, talk with them. All right? At the end of the day, as you're talking to them, more of them will come out. Now you know their faces. You have their face. When the chips are down, after the talk and the chips are down, you can now hunt them.
Okay.
Because you know them. So when all the guns have failed, dialogue is one of the best key to getting people around. Because we have done the military style. We have done so many styles, but it's not working. So what is working elsewhere might not work in Nigeria. Okay? But since the governor of Zamfara now set his motion and decided to call them and talk, and maybe they have lists of the problems now, you go by what works for you. We might not have the same thing working for Niger Delta, for Northwest, for Northeast. But whatever works for you, you harness it, you expand it, and you see how far you can go with it.
Yeah. So we identify what structure works for which region and then stick to it. So do you have something to add? She mentioned policy, legislation, dialogue.
Okay. As somebody who has been in the situation, I might not have a clinical answer, but I would like to paint a few scenarios. I go back to the earlier submission that systems are worked by people. When we say government, we put it at an abstraction layer that assumes that there are separate sets of people somewhere other than us. And so that already defeats the purpose of collective responsibility. Now, when I was kidnapped, the first day that the news broke, one of the drivers that I used had been what they call an ad hoc policeman. They call them spy police. So when they called him and told him our guy was kidnapped, they said, "Oh, where?" And they said, "From his house." The statement he said when I came back and he came to see me was that he said, "Look, just pray that he comes back." Now, kidnap falls in different category. There is the hit and miss one. They just see somebody that looks like he's prosperous, then they grab him. Or they wait for you to show up driving a nice car, they grab you. But targeted kidnapping, where I fell, was somebody profiles you, and they decide that, okay, this is the guy they want. The guy said to me that this kind of kidnapping doesn't happen without an understanding around the security forces that it was going to happen. I'm not accusing anybody. It's all in the book. So you have a system. So when they were going to drop ransom, there were policemen all over the place. And the guy that went to drop the ransom said, there are police here. And they called him back. His account too was in the book, by the way. And he said, and they were trying to identify the policemen. And the guy said, don't worry, there are people. So in the midst of checkpoints and police people, they carried a suitcase of cash across. I'd been in a kidnap environment where somebody close to me was kidnapped and we were negotiating. And somebody advised us to go to the police station. As we were coming out, we got a phone call. And the kidnapper said, don't go see police, Abi. So I'm painting this scenario just to show that it's not really a straightforward analytical situation. While I was coming out, the Kano man that took me out is not a kidnapper. but it works in the value chain. Was asking me, oh, when I carry you, pay them, how much you pay them. He was there when they were releasing me. If you say, oh, kidnapper, I say, the kidnapper, but is it or not, is it part of them or not part of them, my association? The security operatives that were supposed to investigate, most times, are part of the system. Now, you have that potpourri of issues, and we say, oh, let's arrest them. Evans was arrested how many years ago? The legal system is such a complication that it allows the richest criminals to go free. That's another problem. You can look at each of these areas and then say, okay, so how do I begin to dimension this problem in order to solve it? And then I go back to the fact that it comes down to the individual at the end of the day. A lot of dynamics are in place, but it comes down to the choices each person makes in each situation. We can say, well, a lot of things affect that, but I still believe that if you say you are using military forces, you would have some limited measure of success. If you dialogue, you would have limited measure of success. If you have this book, or if you don't, there's a chapter, then I try to dimension the problem, and I call it the victim, the victimized, and the usurpers. When you call people out, I was the publisher, I had a newspaper in the Niger Delta. I knew most of the most of the militants by association. When you call some people out and you treat them with kid gloves, what you are inviting is a second level of criminals who then say, well, if I fight them hard enough, they would also call me. And then you just sort of create waves of people whose voices would never have been heard except they become criminals. Yeah. Those are people that are now becoming victimized. And what you see is people are they're turning from victimized to victims. People with victim mentality, and they carry gun, they kidnap people, you call them. Last point. One of the guys that took me, that guards me, his job was just to make sure that I'm alive, I eat, because I'm the cash cow. Guy was writing WAEC exams while he's pointing the gun at my head. He tells me in his defense that he didn't know his parents, that he was raised by a grandmother who passed on when he was 5, and that he'd been on the street since then. So from an empathy perspective, you say, oh, that's why it's turned to criminality. But I've got other stories of people that were in the same boat that didn't go through to criminality. So that's what I argue, that poverty, whatever it is not sufficient to move you away if your values are strong. Now go back to the issue that I was talking about. So this guy is writing WAEC, wants to be a lawyer. He sees the job that he's doing as just a means to an end. He sees me as a cargo that has to be delivered. So when you say, oh, I want to dialogue with them, you are creating new sets of criminals. When you say you want to fight them, you are also creating the mindset that this guy had. I've forgotten his name. 50 Cent? Is that his name? He used to be a musician in America. The guy said, get rich. So you then say, okay, and that's why they are vicious. That if I'm going to die, they're going to die anyway, because if you don't have food, you eventually die. So the guy goes and says, okay, well, let me die while trying to get food. Now, I don't have a solution in all of this, but I'm dimensioning the issues so you would know that the issues we have today, they're systemic in a way that the infrastructure and the governance has failed. But then when you begin to blame government, if I ask you now, half of us work in a government institution, and we say we are not government. We assume that politicians are government. But no politician can steal money if a government man, a civil servant, is not helping him. Again, no answers. Just to paint scenarios in our heart, and we can talk about it.
Wow. Thank you. So it appears it's a vicious cartel of one crime leading to the other, and probably some of us are involved without knowing. Ms. Buki, do you have anything to add to this suggested solutions?
I think that a lot has been said, and I align myself with everything that has been said. I'll just point to one thing and then just say one more thing. I think that we have a non-existent criminal justice system in Nigeria. It's literally not existing, because there was a recent amendment to the Prison Act that says that we now have a correctional facility. And I laugh from the perspective of a lawyer, and I laugh as a citizen of Nigeria. I laugh because what should change is not the name of the law. It is the system. And that ties into what she was talking about. If you rename the prisons as correctional facilities, as those prisons, what has changed about those prisons that make them correctional?
Yeah.
So it's not just about changing the name from, okay, we imprison you. What are the things that we now begin to do? And we can play with some of the ideas as to what makes a facility correctional. Are there perhaps some form of vocational skills acquisition going on in there? Is there a way where when people come out, there's some form of empowerment? Are we even dealing with the problems that made them criminals in the first place?
Yes.
Or they go through this system that we have now, stylishly renamed. They come out and they are back into the system. They commit the same crime. When I was in 300 level, we did a prison project under our social justice course. And we went to the prison, and there's this particular guy that told us that, see me, when I come out, I go come back again. When I come out, I go come back again. You know why? He said, because this not the only place where they get food to chop. When I come here, I know, say, place there where I go sleep, and place there where I go chop. But if a better life is provided outside, so when we are talking about the solutions, we need to look at the different layers and how one problem fits into the other. If we don't deal with that, then there is a problem. Why I said we have a criminal justice system, I'm hoping that Fisayo perhaps may say something, but Fisayo is going to release a report in some days to come, and he talked to me about it. You need to hear the corruption that is going on even in our criminal justice system. And I'm not going to preempt it. I'm not going to say what, but look forward to Fisayo Shoyombo's report. We have a problem. And if we don't deal with that, we'll keep recycling. Then one other thing that I wanted to talk about, I don't know if when we are going to talk about the effect, but I really need to talk about we not underestimating the effect of kidnapping on the victims. I don't know how you are surviving, sir. Yeah. Psychologically, and I'm having to push this. Yes. So I guess that, so let me just answer the question before you asked. And I'm amongst every other effect, I really want to talk about Stockholm Syndrome. And I'm talking about Stockholm Syndrome because it is connected to the cause that I'm known for, the Chibok girls. At some point, we'll remember one girl that came out, Amina Nkeki, that later said she wants to go back to her Boko Haram husband. And a lot of people castigated her. People felt, hey, we said it, these girls have become Boko Haram. But if you understand Stockholm Syndrome, Stockholm Syndrome, the name was derived from something that happened in 1973, where a group of robbers went to a bank to go and rob. And then 6 days after, they started having conversations with the bandits so that they can release these people. And then one of them said to the Prime Minister of Sweden, where this thing happened, and he said, well, he thinks that he supports the cause of what these robbers are doing. If you are doing your best. So even those that have been abducted and the criminals, all of them now joined force. That's how we came up with Stockholm Syndrome. So my quick point is, We don't have a system in Nigeria that takes care of people that have been psychologically molested through kidnapping. There is a proximate effect on we, even though we have not been physically abducted. But our minds have been abducted. Our minds have been kidnapped. So you as a person, Lola was saying yesterday, please wear your tag. And she said, you know, she downplayed on, security situation. This so that we can easily identify you in case there is anything. So I just need to say that it is important we have a system where when people have gone through this, there is a proper kind of care that they go through. If not, breed people who will continue to be affected psychologically and often for the rest of their lives if we don't have a solution in place.
Systems. A lot of talk on systems. So, Dr. Amina, you said you wanted to comment. But before you comment, we would also want to hear how we can unpack mental health and dealing with this for victims. I'll quickly share a story about myself. So my dad was a victim of banditry. He was killed in one of the attacks in Plateau State, in Mangu. And he had workers. He's a civil engineer. So we were trying to actually even look for the workers before looking for him. And it was a lot of... I wasn't dealing with my own trauma. I was trying to deal with what every other person, you know, the wives of those people, their source of livelihood, you know. So one of the wives was saying we should just kill her so that she'll follow her husband because... So those people, after their husbands die or their brothers or sisters die, there's no care for them. How do you unpack mental health and care for those kind of...
I will go briefly. For the prison service, on the plateau, the maximum security prison in Jos, I buy the medication for my patients. I have 80 patients. I buy the antipsychotics, antidepressants, anticonvulsants, otherwise they will rot. Nobody will give them nothing. So part of my salary every month, I take 50,000 naira out of it for my patients. So that's what I do, and that's why in Nigeria at the moment, say it anywhere you go, there is no prison in Nigeria that manages mentally ill patients like just maximum security prison. And I took it upon myself as my community development. That's what I do. Now, for psychological issues of Chibok, my dear, mental health is nonsense. Everybody does not like mental health. They stigmatize us, they stigmatize our patients. But if you remember, health is the state of physical, mental, and social. Mental, physical, and social. They delete the mental. You go to IDP camps, you go to kidnap camps, they are bringing rice, they are bringing deworming medication, they are bringing all kinds of nonsense. Because you cannot give a traumatized individual those things. He will not take it because his mind is not there. So mental health is always out. And that's why I wrote a chapter on psychological needs for Chibok girls in one of the books Aisha Murtala Mohammed is going to publish very soon. I wrote a chapter on that. Now, the only thing we can do is to take mental health as a serious issue. All of us here, you can function with diabetes, you can function with hypertension, you can function with even cancers. Some cancers, you can go about with them. If you are mentally ill, you can never function. As a man here, the Muslims, you cannot serve as an imam. Yes, you can't, because you are mentally ill. And this mental health is nothing. It's your well-being, which we neglect. So that's why even in adversities, in traumatic situations, we downplay mental health. So therefore, the intervention we are bringing now is community-focused, culturally informed traumatic intervention, where social networks and the community will strengthen families so that they are able to stand adversities, to become resilient and adaptive. That's a model we are advocating, and we have started doing it on the plateau. Community-focused, culturally informed. You cannot take Chibok girls to Abuja for psychological intervention, no. You take the mental health professionals trained to Chibok, because that's their community. That's where they will be. The community has been traumatized. The families are traumatized. The victims are traumatized. Why are you taking them to Abuja? It doesn't make sense for people that have sense.
So I was going to ask how people can, because some people go through these things and and they don't know how to name them. We're the ones who know what trauma is, who know what anxiety is, or all of this. Some of us are fortunate to know we are dealing with this and we get help. Does your program include helping them identify that they're even actually dealing with this?
Normally,
kind of
when you go through trauma, you will have anxiety, you will be a little bit low, you would have, confusion, fear, you'll be overcautious. Those are normal things from the beginning. They are normal because you are a human being. Every human being has feelings, has emotions, and have behaviors, whether you are a male or female. And that's why you have to understand that if a man is crying, allow him to cry, because he's a human being before being a man. Because he has feelings, he has emotions, and he has a behavior that will come out of that. So you allow them to cry. But when it becomes persistent and severe, it could lead to prolonged depression, anxiety, substance use, suicide, PTSD, and adjustment disorders, which you would notice as the family. I can't come and just pick you out and say you are not well.
Yes.
Maybe in your culture, in your family, it's okay. But when your family bring you out and say there's a problem, then there's a problem. Then we should look into that. That's psychological first aid. That's what we do. So when people are out of the kidnapper's den, as families, we should be supportive and listen and dwell more on the strength of the person that is out and not on the negative effects of the captor. So what did they do to you? So how did you? No, don't do that. Build on the strength of that individual at that time, unless or until he wants to talk about it. Let him be or let her be.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I think it was at Ake last year, and people classify mental health issues as madness. And I said, then every Nigerian is mad. So if you're in Nigeria, if you're a Nigerian, raise your hand and say I am mad. If you've seen a Nigerian drive, you know that we have mental issues. If you see the way we do things, the way we eat, the way we talk, everything we do has symptoms of a traumatized existence. Now, Ajia has said something that we are doing as part of our own intervention. And we said there has to be a communal, and that's why I said at the beginning that its values, its community, its humanity. You can't take those three away from any solution. And what they are doing now is fantastic, looking at a communal approach. Well, in my own case, we were robbed as a family. So my 8-year-old child, we didn't think, like you said, we didn't think everybody else but the kidnapped victim was traumatized. But she was severely traumatized. And we didn't know, she appeared normal until she began to exhibit signs of aggression. Now, why did she do that? She saw me on the floor, the vulture of her life, and people coming around to machete me just randomly. So her mom being slapped around. And our reaction to that was aggression. So a normally docile, happy-go-lucky 8-year-old girl goes to school, a new environment, because they had to move away from where we were. And someone comes around her to, the way Nigerians are always over familiar, slapping you on the back, and then she goes defensive. Wow. That's trauma exhibiting. So what we try to do is to expose the entire family to some sort of first level evaluation, because we are not sure who has been traumatized. So you assume that everybody in the family has been traumatized. That's on one scale. You asked me how did I carry on? What does trauma mean, and what does it lead to? She's explained what it means. But for me, we have a lack of capacity as Nigerians to think about second-order costs. So a road is bad. So the politicians have chopped the money for this road. But do you know how many people that bad road has killed? If you look at the economic impact of the decisions that we make, that's why yesterday when we were talking about this thing, I said there has to be a standard. There has to be, we can't compromise and say, well, this is my truth, that is your truth. So in a kidnapped environment, the entire community loses. I run a business in Port Harcourt with my wife. If you had completely uprooted everything, 100 families will have lost their income.
Yes.
Now you can trace that back to the kids that would not go to school, girls that would then go into prostitution and all of that. That's second order, third order costs. People just ask me, so how much did you pay? I said, how is that your problem? That's not an issue for you, yes. How much I paid. So we have a situation where we continually gloss over the issues that matter, not just in kidnapping, but in all kinds of criminality. And we say, let's just move ahead. We cannot just go ahead. And that's why I took a decision to write about it and speak about it, so that people will begin to see what actually goes on in this situation. My situation is not different from other people's situation. I came out alive. In one of the times they were taking me to the jungle to sleep, they showed me a shallow grave, somebody who tried to escape. That's somebody's father. That's somebody's uncle, probably. That's somebody's anybody. You can then sort of do a trajectory for all the people that have come in contact with criminality, and what effect that has on their personal psyche, on the way they think, on everything. So when you say psychological, I'm going to just stop here. Psychological effect of banditry and kidnapping, hard criminality, all kinds of criminality. Now, corruption in the high places has led to everybody aspiring to get rich either by crook or by hook. That's the psychological effect of what you see. So we don't think about this in all the dimensions that we should, and then we take out, okay, this is bad, this is not bad. Everybody wants to be a politician for what? To make money. Over and above the salary you are paid. And we have now rationalized making money as a politician as normal. But it is not normal. I was reading this morning that governor threw a word of money out in the window, and the entire street started a riot, trying to grab. No, it's not me that you hear it from. Nothing is safe. Okay, I'll tell you later. Come and meet me later. Not this state. Even if it was this state, I won't tell you. Then I won't get out alive. Again, that's me being traumatized now, because I can't say my truth anymore. You can't speak your truth. So it's the governor of Kogi State, by the way. Now, what will make people go to that place and start picking money? What will make people go to a place where the pipe has been burst and start scooping oil? And you know that this thing can explode at any time.
Wow. Thank you so much. You can get his book and read all about it. So we'll throw the floor open for questions. Okay, one question. Yeah. Sorry, is there someone with the mic or?
I think I'm the most luckiest person in this world to be given this particular chance. But I'm going to be very brief. All throughout the discussions, one thing that is prominent from what I heard is a system failure. The system is bad, the system has failed, the system is not working. And then we're trying to find a solution to this kind of situation. I can't see any solution that is coming out from us when we have a system that has already failed. So what do we do? I think probably there's only one solution, which I have been advocating for the past 10 years. We are gone as a people. As a nation, as a people, we are dead. So the only solution probably, because I heard somebody saying we are all mad. And I raised my hand, yes, I agree, I am mad. So if I am mad and every one of us is mad, then we need only one solution. Let's go back to the old times when there was general disenchantment, when there is general problem within a society. look at the lives of the prophets of old. I think God made a particular solution. And I like at least one, which is that raise the whole country up. Raise it up and then drop. Let everybody be underground. And then I don't expect that we'll now start looking for mad people again to come and what? Live on that particular situation, because it is not working. The president is mad. The governors are mad. I am mad. Lola is mad. Everybody is mad. So if you have that kind of situation, and I think we are right, I will give you just 3 basic examples, scenarios, which is coming from literature. That's my field. When I saw a cartoon of a 3-year-old going to a nursery school, and his mom was asking that particular child, I gave you money and you didn't come back with the money. What did you do with your money? And he said, Mom, I used the money to bribe Joe to do my assignment. A 3-year-old going to a nursery school, giving money to go and feed himself, and he is now using that money to bribe his own friend to do his assignment. That is telling us a particular story.
Okay, so just
Okay.
kindly summarize.
Secondly, when you talk about the values, yes, I agree. Yes, there is a very good poet in my own society. They caught a thief, and people were shouting. Young boys were shouting, oh, look at that thief, look at that thief. He looked at them and said, look, you better keep quiet. Why are you shouting at this? What is his problem? Go back to your mom. She's the first-class thief. The money given by your father to cook food for you, she'll take something out of it and then buy a wrapper. And you're calling somebody a thief. You who has already what? Imbibed it from the breast.
But it's
I'm
not from
giving
the
you a scenario. This is
okay.
coming from a
Okay,
poet.
thank you,
It's
sir.
coming from a poet. He is
Sir,
painting a
your
society
last
for
one.
you.
Your last one.
So it's up to us to now start talking to ourselves.
Thank you so much, sir.
If you are that worried about what's happening, we are
Thank
all
you,
what?
sir.
Kidnappers. We are all bandits. Take a look at yourself, and then you'll find out where the problem is.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Sir,
So,
sir, please, with what you said, we are the government. I am a government
Alright.
because I do what I want to do in my place of work right. And if you don't go by it, I don't care who is there. I give my rules because we have a schedule. So you follow your schedule, and when you are good, someday you will get to a place where it is higher, and you can go and change the place. So wherever you are, change that system to what it is supposed to
both
be.
as a father and as a mother, it's not the mother's job alone. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Amiriahu. Thank you, Ms. Buki. Thank you, sir.